Hi everyone, this is Andy Hudson here, the creator of Apocalypse Tower. This is a 1 to 4 player game. It's a cooperative game about a group of survivors that are trying to make it to safety, waiting for a helicopter. So in this video today, we're going to go over the rules of play. So as opposed to having to read the entire rule book over here, you can hopefully get started playing the game sooner, and perhaps this will be a little bit more clear. So just to give a bit of background on the game, you are a team of survivors, and you are in a city area where there is a lot of zombies. And so you have fortunately found a two-way radio, and you contacted a military outpost in a location nearby, and they are willing to send a helicopter. However, you have to find a place for that helicopter to come and pick you up. So as it happens, there is a building in the area, in this case a 4-story building, which on top of it has a very nice helicopter landing pad. So this is the place where the helicopter is going to come. The helicopter is going to take 12 hours to get there, and it's your job as a team to infiltrate this building and make your way up to the top. Within a 12-hour period, the helicopter will wait for you for 4 more hours, and then it will leave. So you've got a 4-hour window after the helicopter arrives in order to get to the top, in order to win the game. So the bad news is that there are a lot of zombies both outside of the building and probably within that building as well. And so you have to break in here. You have to deal with those zombies. You have to make your way up. The building is heavily secured. There are locked doors that separate the different levels, going all the way up and getting progressively more difficult. Plus, there is going to be more and more zombies showing up, showing some interest in what is going on, and of course, coming after you to make you their lunch. So this is a role-playing game, and so at the beginning you can play with anywhere between 1 and 4 players. It's probably the most fun with more than 1 player, but it can be played with just a single player. At the beginning of the game, you're going to choose to play as 4 different characters. So I have a set of 6 different preset characters here. They're only identified basically by color code here, and so they have a player mat and a matching pawn. If we kind of zoom in on one of these player mats, we can see that they have a name which you can change if you want to. They have some stats, which I'll explain in just a minute, and then they have a bunch of other things here. They've got some slots for holding a weapon and armor. They've got an inventory. And we'll get into those details in just a minute, but the main point here is that we have a unique set of attributes for every single character or survivor in this set of 6 here. So you're going to pick to play as 4 of these 6 characters. You can just pick one and go ahead and start playing with them, or if you want to, you can alter their stats, and basically the only rules here are that in the top row here, these are called the governing attributes, and you can change these however you want to, but the total sum of these has to be equal to 15. The second row down is their skills, so you'll notice that there's lines that connect between the governing attributes and each of the skills. What that means is that any of these governing attributes, the skill that they're connected to can't be any higher than what is currently the governing attribute value. So in the lower row, the skills, you can have, again, up to 15 points distributed. One thing I didn't mention with the governing attributes, you have to have a value of at least 1 for each of these. However, with the skills, you do not have to have, you can have 0 as well as any number that you choose. It is advisable to have a somewhat well-balanced character at the beginning, as you'll sort of see here, because the governing attributes influence their other stats, such as their hit points, so the maximum hit points they have, which is basically just their strength multiplied by 2. Their crafting ability, so I'll talk about crafting in a little bit here, but basically their crafting ability is related to their dexterity plus their intelligence. Then you have what's called the initiative, which is really determines the order that they take their turns during rounds. If it's a higher value, it means that they take their turn earlier. And of course, agility and dexterity make up their initiative. And then we have movement, which is basically how many spaces they can move, and that's related to their endurance and their agility attributes. So when you choose a character, you have a couple different tracks on their card. For the health track, which is on the left-hand side with the red, it's got the heart. You would put a red cube, on whatever is the maximum hit points for that character. So in this case, we have 6, so we would put that one on 6. So the next thing we want to look at here is just their level. So all the characters begin at level 1. They will accumulate experience points by doing different things during the game, which can allow them to level up and then gain some increases to their stats, and as well as some perks. So that is really the overview of the character mats. They're all the same, however, just different in their starting spread. So you can just pick any of these 4. You can change them however you want to. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to pick on the first 4 that are here, and I'm going to get rid of the orange and the yellow survivors here. So you'll also see that the survivors are on the board here. This is the street level, and we can arrange these however we want to, as long as they stay within this kind of gold area here. So once we've picked our characters, we can get rid of the rest of them and their cubes. And then we can go into our starting equipment. So first of all, you want to just shuffle the stack. You can pick it up and bring it over here. When you start the game, you will start with a certain amount of equipment to begin with. The number of equipment cards you're going to get is equal to the number of characters you have, and then plus 2. So I'm just going to, again, shuffle this, and then I'm going to place 6 cards, because we have 4 and then plus 2, out here on the playing area. So I'm just going to drag these out. And then we'll flip them over. And so what we can see here is we have a number of different weapons and armor here. So we can divvy up this however we want to amongst the 4 characters that we have. So when you're assigning different pieces of equipment to a survivor, you want to keep in mind what their starting skills are. So for example, if we take a baseball bat, we probably want to give this to a character that is good in that particular skill, so that they're more effective. So we look at Billy here. Billy, we look at their card. They have a melee. So the symbol here represents melee. Ability of 5. You look down here, you see that this card also has that symbol, which is how you define which type of weapon that it is. And that they're good. So we'll learn about combat in a little bit here, but the main point here is that you want to just make sure that you're matching appropriately for the skill sets of the characters. So we take this 9mm pistol. It makes sense to give it to someone who has a relatively good small gun skill, which is this little pistol here, which matches this one. I'm going to give it to Cooper. And then we have a 22 rifle. Again, we're going to give this to Billy because he has a value of 7 for that, which is high. And then what do we have left here? We've got a baseball bat and then 2 leather jackets. Okay, so right now this character doesn't have a weapon, so I'm going to give it to them. Even though their melee ability is very low, they can still use this as a weapon, as you will see in a bit. The other thing here is, so this character again does not have a weapon, which is a little bit of a shame, but that's not the end of the world. So your character does not have to have a weapon to be effective. This particular character has a skill that's really high in this one here, which is medicine. So they're going to be useful for other things rather than fighting. They can fight, but that's not their main strength. So instead, I'm going to give them one of these leather jackets. And then we have one more leather jacket here. Typically, I would give this, I would suggest giving this to a character which has lower hit points, just because they're more vulnerable. And the leather jacket acts as a buffer. So this is a piece of armor. So once you've divvied that up, you can then equip the starting equipment on the characters. So if it's a weapon, you can place one of the weapons in the weapon slot. And if you have an armor item, you can also equip that on that character. So the first thing we want to look at here is the clip size of the weapon that is just equipped here. So you'll see that there's an ammunition symbol here with a number beside it. That is a clip size for that particular weapon. And at the beginning of the game, the weapon is fully loaded. So we're going to basically, this is our clip track here. We are going to put our yellow ammunition cube right on the value that corresponds to the maximum clip size. And then the other thing is if we're equipping armor, we also get another cube, which represents our armor health. So you'll notice that there's a value here. It says health 5. This is different than the character's health. I think I have to resize this a little bit to make it all fit, but we're going to place that right there. So as we take damage, we are going to get buffered by the leather jacket, but the leather jacket does take damage, and it does get reduced. And when it's reduced to 0, it's destroyed, and then we would just discard that. So I'm just going to equip the rest of these characters with their weapons. So in this case, we have a baseball bat. It has infinite ammunition. You'll notice that on the 0 space of the ammunition gauge, there's also an infinity symbol, which just represents that there are some items that have infinite ammo, like the baseball bat. They don't really even have ammunition, but that's how we keep track of it. In this case, I have to choose between 2 weapons, so I'm going to, for this character, choose the 22 rifle, and then I can 7 ammunition. And then here, they only have a leather jacket, so I'll just put that there. I'm just going to quickly copy a little blue cube that I made, and then we'll drop it right here. All right, so that's it for assigning the starting equipment. Then we can just set the rest of that deck aside. The next thing we're going to do is we also get some other items to start the game with. So that comes from this deck here called the Small Loot deck. So I'm just going to shuffle this. And this time, we take 2 times the number of survivors that we're playing with. So in this case, we would take 8 of these crits from the Small Loot deck. I'm just going to grab 8. 1, 2, 3. All right, so we'll flip those over. All right, so we have a bunch of different items here, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the starting equipment. So we're going to divvy these up. The players who are playing as the characters can agree upon where things are going. It's to their advantage to give items that benefit or in line with a particular character's skill set, it benefits the whole team. So it's not a good thing just to try and hoard everything to yourself. So let's have a look here. So we have shotgun shells. So we don't actually even have a shotgun yet. So we'll leave that one for now. We have a screwdriver. So this is a lockpicking device. So it has a lockpick symbol. We can look at who here has a reasonable lockpicking skill. So in this case, Cooper has the highest lockpicking skill. So it kind of makes sense to give that device to them because they're going to have the most success using it. We have a medicine item here, remedy. So this requires the medicine skill. So this character here, Shelly, has a skill of 7, so it kind of makes sense to give that to them. We have another screwdriver, which I will give to Cooper. So one important thing here is when you have multiples of the same item, you can stack these in your inventory. You only have 6 slots to keep items, and this is going to fill up very quickly. So the more efficient you can keep your items stored in your inventory, the better. So we're just going to stack those 2. We have a pistol clip. So right now the only character with a pistol is Cooper, so we're going to give it to them. We have a rifle clip, so we're going to give that to Billy. We have a small health kit, so again we're going to give it to the character who has the best healing ability. And then finally we have a second rifle clip, so I'm just going to stack those. All right, so that is the overall setup. I mean, the shotgun shells here, you can give it to really anybody. Maybe I'll just give it to Hawk because, well, they just don't really have anything right now. So, and you know what? Perhaps I should give one of these medicine cards to Hawk because they also have a 5 medicine skill. And why not? Let's give them some potential here. All right, so that is the setup for the characters in the game. We are essentially ready to start playing the game. As I kind of said briefly at the beginning there, we are on a pretty particular timeline here in order to get to the top of this building. And so when we radio that helicopter, it's 8 a.m. So this watch and dial tells you what time it is right now. It currently is 8 a.m. You can ignore this clock here. That's just wrong. And every round that we play is going to be half an hour. And so we have 12 hours before this helicopter right here is going to show up and make its landing on the roof here. And in the meantime, we've got 12 hours to figure out how to get in this building and how to get up the levels to the top. So in order to win the game, you basically have to arrive when the helicopter is here, and you have to be on one of the squares that is within this circle with the H. You can also be on one of these as long as you're on the line. It doesn't really matter, but basically you just have to be within this area in order to get on that helicopter. And so if one or more characters gets onto the helicopter, then the players win the game. However, if only one of them makes it, there is the opportunity for that character to continue on in different scenarios of this game. So I'm planning to have lots of different scenarios and expansions for this. So you can basically keep your character and all the items they've got and all their experience and their attributes and carry it on into the next game. So, that is, in a nutshell, how you win the game. So you can lose the game in several different ways. You can lose the game if you run out of time. So if you basically, the helicopter will arrive at 8 p.m., but it'll only give you till midnight to get there. Otherwise, it's got bigger and better things to do. Maybe it's another group of survivors out there somewhere. They got to do stuff, so they can't wait for you any longer. The other thing, other way you can lose a game is obviously if your survivors all die. then you'll lose the game. Your survivors can actually be turned into zombies. As I'll explain in a little bit, if they turn into zombies, they are all effectively out of commission, and the game is over. You lose the game. The final way you can lose the game is if any of the zombies actually make it up to the top level here. So you do not want even one of them to do that, because if that happens, the helicopter either won't land, or if it's there, it'll take off and it's going to leave you behind. It's too risky. All right, so before we get going, I just want to mention one more thing here. So this is this mat here outlines the condition of the various different doors that we have to get through. So the very first, we'll call it a door, is this boarded up wall here, boarded up entrance, and we have to break that down. When you approach a door, you have two options to get through it. The first option is just to break it down, and you can just use your combat to blast holes in it, deal damage to it until you basically deal enough damage that equals its health, and then it is destroyed. The other option is you can unlock the door. So if you have a character that has a suitable lock-picking ability and they've got a lock-picking device, and that character is at the door, they can use an action on their turn to unlock the door. And the advantage of doing that is that all of your survivors can pass through that door freely, but zombies will be stopped behind that door, and it's a barrier to them, so they have to break it down. The other thing you'll notice here is that there is a number of experience points that are gained for the character that either destroys or unlocks a door. And so just keep in mind there's lots of different ways to get experience points in the game, but this is one of them. It doesn't matter if you destroy the door or if you unlock it, you still get the experience points awarded there. So you'll also see that the doors get progressively more difficult to get through. So that's something important to know, so that you don't just use your best lock-picking device on the very first door, because you may not want to do that. The other thing is that there are actually lockers and safes that are inside the building that contain nice items that you can also get access to by unlocking them, and you get experience points for unlocking them as well. The other part of the map that I want to talk about here is the zombie level. So the characters can level up, but so can the zombies. So all the zombies start at level 1, and every time a character gains experience, we also add experience points to the zombie pool as well. And when we have reached enough experience points for the zombies, they will all level up. And we'll see in a minute that when you level up the zombies, they basically become stronger and faster, and they can strike from a farther distance. They're just basically harder to get rid of. They're more deadly. But they do give you some more experience points, and they have a higher chance of dropping better items. All right, so I think we've kind of gone over the gist of the setup here and the layout. So let's dive into the game and start playing. So the very first thing you have to do when we're starting the game is to draw a card from this event deck. So basically in a round, you've got the very first step is drawing one of these cards. So we're going to do this, and we can rate it. And so this is an effect that will stay in play just for this round, and then we'll be drawing another card in the next round that will replace this effect. So this is only an effect for this round. So this one just tells us that zombies can't be destroyed. If we would destroy them, then their life is just 1 instead of nothing. And so that really doesn't affect us at all. So we're just going to keep going. So the next part of the round is basically just taking turns. So characters and zombies will take their turns in sequence based on their initiative value. So if you look at all their cards, you'll see on there is the initiative. It's probably easiest just to arrange all of your characters in order of decreasing initiative. So Billy has the lowest initiative, so we're going to put them over here. And then we have Shelly and Hawk. If they're the same, you can basically just choose the order that you would like to play them in, if they're all things being the same. And then zombies also get to take their turn based on their initiative. And it can be that a zombie's initiative is between two characters. And so it would therefore go the character that's above it in initiative goes, and then it's the zombie's turn, and then it's the next character's turn who has a lower initiative than the zombie. All right, so currently there aren't any zombies here, so we don't have to worry about that yet. So what we do is we basically just go in order of initiative. So we're going to start with Cooper. So on a character's turn, they can take their movement, and then they can do two things. So they can take two actions. And so the actions are basically you can pick something up, you can trade with another character that is on an adjacent or orthogonal, so basically in front or beside, not diagonally. You can trade with them any number of items back and forth. You can use an item. So if you have an item in your inventory that you would like to use, you can use it. So for example, you can use one of these medicine cards on a character that is on an adjacent space or themselves. And I'll get into using items in just a minute, but you can use an item. You can attack. So you can, if there's a zombie somewhere, you can, within your range, you can attack them. And then you can pick up items. And then you can also craft things. All right, so I'm not gonna go through the whole game here, but I will just go over each of the different actions here and the movement. So we'll just start with Cooper. We'll look at their movement attributes. So they have a movement of 6. And so movement is only orthogonal. So you can move side to side, or you can move forward and back. You can jump over other survivors, but you cannot go over a zombie. So if we put a zombie right here and Cooper was right there, they can't go this way. They have to go around the zombie. So let's just put them there. And so Cooper can move 6. And just for the fun of it, I'm just going to go like this. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over to this tile here that says small loot on it. So whenever you see one of these tiles, it means that when you land on it, you can use an action to pick that up. So I'm just going to delete that and draw a card from the small loot deck. So this is the small loot deck. And what do we have here? Well, we've got more shotgun shells. Yeah, not particularly useful right now, but that's what we got. So the characters can use their movement in between, like before or after taking action, so they can intersperse them. So Cooper has taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can also move over, take their 6th movement after they've taken an action. They have one action that's left right now, and so we're going to use that action to attack this boarded door here. So in combat, what we do is the very first thing you do if you have a weapon that has ammunition is you reduce it by 1. It has to have ammunition in order to attack. And then you roll a combat die, or you basically just roll a d6. So we're going to roll that. Ooh, that's good. And there's a little card over here that helps you kind of calculate whether or not you have hit the door and whether or not you have a critical hit. So again, you roll the die, and then you have to measure the distance away to the target. So in our case, we are 1, 2 spaces away from what we're shooting at. So keep that in mind. So the formula goes, our roll plus our character's skill has to be greater than or equal to the distance to the target plus the weapon's skill. So this is great because we're using a 9mm pistol. The weapon skill is 3. We are 2 spaces away from the target. So on this side of the equation, we have 3 plus 2 spaces away is 5. On the other side, we've rolled a 6, and our character's skill is 5. So if we come back over here, we go 6 plus 5 is 11. 11 is greater than 5. So we have beat the challenge, and we have successfully hit the door. The other thing we have to check here is whether or not we've scored a critical hit. So on each weapon card, you'll see this at the bottom. It'll say crit for critical damage. And then in brackets, it'll have a number. This is the roll that you need to at least meet in order to get the critical hit. So you have to roll a 6. And lucky for us, we have actually rolled a 6. So that is awesome. So it is a critical hit. Then we look at how much damage is added to that. So it's 1. So without a critical, the damage that this weapon does is 1, but we're going to add 1 to it. So it does 2 damage to this target. And to signify that, we're just going to take, we've got these different minus health tokens. We're just going to throw 2 -1 health tokens on there. All right. So that is the end of Cooper's turn, because they have taken their movement and they have taken 2 actions. You don't have to take both of your actions, but you can't carry actions over to another turn. So the next order goes to Hawk this time. So Hawk is going to move, and Hawk can move only 4. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So they are the same distance away, but they have a weapon that cannot reach that door. So one thing I forgot to mention is that each weapon has a range, which is this target symbol. You'll see that the 9mm pistol has a range of 3, so it can hit something that is 3 spaces away orthogonally. So if you were to walk to that target, you'd have to be able to move to it in 3 spaces. Unfortunately, the baseball bat is not a ranged weapon, and it can't hit that door, at least right now. So we can't use that weapon at this point, but there are other things we can do. So another action you can do is called scrounging. So to scrounge, we basically search the area around us for objects that might be useful. So we draw a card from what's called the junk deck or junk card deck, and we flip it over. So what we can see here is we've got a box of nails. There's 3 different types of materials that you can find. I'm going to use a second action here for Hawk to draw another card from the junk deck, to scrounge again. This time we have a lead pipe. It's giving us 2 units of metal, and this one's giving us 4 units of adhesive. So just for the sake of demonstration here, we're going to move over to Shelly, and she will take her movement 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's say that Hawk has taken a lot of damage. Let's just say, oh boy, we're down to 4 health, and Shelly has the option to use the small health kit from her inventory on either herself or on Hawk. So she's going to use that on Hawk. So to do that, first of all, she has to have a skill that is at least the value that's required by the card. So requirement is 5 for medicine. Her ability is 7, so that's great. So she can use this, and if it also says that if her ability is greater than 5, that it heals an extra hit point. So if she uses this card, she'll discard it from her inventory over here. And then she also gains 2 experience points. So we're just going to add those here. But then the zombies also get 2 experience points. And then we can heal Hawk by 6 points. So Hawk's maximum hit points is 10. 10 plus 4, or sorry, 6 plus 4 is 10. So they're back to full health. So there we go. That was one of Shelly's actions. The second action is just going to be to grab one of these junk cards. Oh, it's a spring. Perfect. Finally, we have Billy. So Billy is going to come over here and deal with this zombie here. So I'm just gonna sneak in here and grab the zombie's matching card here. So what you'll find is that the zombies are numbered and of a particular type, and that is to keep track of them because there can be multiples of the same type of zombie out, and they can be in different places, and we have to keep track of them. So, for example, let's say we have this zombie here, Bloody Mary number 1, out on the board, and Billy is going to go deal with that zombie. So he can move 6. So Billy's going to move 1, 2, 3, just to here. And Billy has a rifle which has a range of 3. So this zombie is actually 2 spaces away, so it would be 1, 2. So Billy could actually be here and still hit that zombie. So let's just do that. So you go 1, 2, and 3 spaces away. So we are going to attack the zombie. So we'll reduce our ammunition by 1. We will roll the combat die, and we'll use the same formula that we did previously, which is right here, to calculate whether we score a hit. So first of all, we have to take our roll, we add it to our skill, which is 7. So 4 plus 7 is 11. Our distance away is 3, and a rifle skill is also 3. So 3 plus 3 is 6. So 6 is less than what's on the other side. So 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 is greater than 6, so we score a hit. However, we did not score a critical hit, so we are only at 4. We had to roll at least a 5 to do that. So we will place damage tokens on that zombie. So they take 2 damage here. So we go 1, 2, and then we can do the exact same action one more time. So we're going to attack a second time. And we roll a 5, which is a critical hit. So we can pretty quickly calculate that if we rolled a 4 last time, we rolled a 5 this time, we definitely have a hit. And it's a critical hit. So we can just throw another 3 damage on that zombie. So this is a level 1 zombie. If we look at their card, you can see that there's basically 3 sets of attributes depending on what level they are. If they're on level 1, they have this particular one has 6 hit points, and its initiative is 4. So it would actually take. I mean, I didn't do this properly because it should have taken its turn before Billy, but we'll just pretend that Billy had a higher initiative, and now it's the zombie's turn. I don't know if I mentioned this, but if a zombie and a survivor have the same initiative, that the survivors take their turn before the zombie does. All right, so now it is the zombie's turn, and I mean, I could have moved Billy a bit more, but we're not going to worry about that. The zombie can move up to 6 spaces. That's what this running person symbol is. So it's going to go 1, 2. It's going to move towards the closest character, survivor, and then it's going to attack if it can. So when it attacks, again, we roll a die, and then we compare that value to what's on the card's damage wheel. So every number on the die corresponds to either a miss, a lower amount of damage, or a critical hit for a higher amount of damage. In this case, it's a hit, and it is a 3 damage. So then Billy takes 3 damage. So he goes down 1, 2, 3. The other thing that happens whenever a zombie scores a hit is the character becomes infected. So we just grab one of these green die, drop it onto their card, and start their infection if they don't already have infection. If the character is already infected, then every subsequent hit they get more infected. Until finally, if they go past infection level of 5, they will become a zombie. So I'll explain that in just a little bit, but we'll just keep going for now. All right, so that is the end of the turn, or the end of the round, rather. We have gone through all of the characters and all the zombies that are in play, and now we advance the clock. So I've got a button here in Tabletop Simulator just to make this easy. So if we press plus time, the time will shift from 8 to 8:30. When this happens, we have to look at the color of the time value, because it will tell us how many zombies are going to spawn this turn. If it's green, no zombies spawn. If it is, I'm going to advance this again, if it's orange, then we place 1 zombie. If it is red, like that, then we place 2 zombies. So let's say we were at 9 o'clock and we have to place a zombie. So what we do is shuffle our zombie deck. We pull one out and then place it down. You can see that this is Shrieking Sherry, number 5. So we go and grab their pawn from the set, and then it goes on the street level within the gold area. So it can go within any of these, but it has to be the closest it can be to a character. Otherwise, if all things are equal, the players can choose. So there we go. The other thing we have to do is draw another one of these event cards, and again, it's going to just modify what happens just for this round. All right, so let's fast forward just a little bit here. Let's say that we have blown this door down. We're going to delete that. And once you do that, you can reveal what is inside of this building, at least on this floor. So if you ever come across one of these, this is a zombie token. It just means that we have to spawn a zombie there. So we're going to grab a card from the deck. It's a Spewing Spike, number 3. We'll grab their card, and they're going to go in here right on that space, and then they are activated. So if they can take their turn during the round in the sequence, they will. But if we've already passed their initiative value, they do not take their turn this round, but they will take it next round. All right, so again, let's kind of move forward here, and let's just take Cooper, because Cooper is good at lockpicking, and let's move over to this door over here, and let's just say that they are here. So they have to be in front of a door, in front of a locked object to use it. You notice there's a safe over here. There's some goodies underneath it. If you manage to unlock this, you get lots of experience points, plus you get the items that are under here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and unlock this door. So let's say it's Cooper's turn, and we are going to attempt to unlock this door. So the very first thing we have to have is a lockpicking device. So Cooper is going to discard one of these items, and then they get to roll the number of die that are indicated on that card. So in this case, it says 1D, which is one die. So we're going to roll that. Again, we have to meet the requirement. So Cooper is got a lockpicking of 5, requires 3 to use this item. We're going to take this. We're going to give it a good roll and see what we have. We roll a 4. So what we do is we take that roll and we add it to their lockpicking ability, which is 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. And then we look at the lock skill for that door. So in this case, the brown wooden door is lockpick skill of 9. So we actually met that challenge and unlocked the door. So we can just take the cube, indicate that it is unlocked, and we have gained 4 experience points. And then don't forget to give it to the zombies. All right, so then that would just go into the discard pile, and this door would be unlocked. So just to signify that it is unlocked, you can. I mean, this is enough. But if the door ever gets destroyed, you can rotate this, and on the back side it is just the door being in an open state. I'll talk really quickly about crafting. So crafting is something that you can do on your turn, and you can use an action to craft something, and you can craft any of these items, any of these constructs, as long as you have the requisite skill and you have the requisite building materials to build it. And thirdly, you have to have the room to place it down somewhere. So if you're like stuck between a wall and another object and there's nowhere else to put it, then you can't build it. All right, so basically, let's just grab a bunch of these junk cards and we'll just load up, let's see here. Who's good at building things? Looks like, it looks like Shelly has the highest crafting ability. So you'll be looking at this after you hear craft. So we'll just take a bunch of these just for fun. So we have enough to build something here. All right, so Shelly here is, we're just going to put them right here. And they have adhesive. They have 5 adhesive. They've got 2 metal. Actually, they've got 10 adhesive, and they've got 4 wood. We come over here and check out the constructs listing here. We can see that they can indeed craft some of these constructs. And so if we look at the very first one here, this wooden wall 1, it requires 3 adhesive, 3 wood, and 1 metal. Requires a crafting skill of 6, so Shelly has a crafting skill of 8, so that's satisfied. She also has all of these materials, so if she wanted to, she could use an action to build that construct. So let's do that. So we're going to, in order to do that, we have to discard junk cards from our inventory to pay the cost. So we need to have 3 adhesive, we need 1 metal, and we need 3 wood. Yeah, that's right. So we would take all those and discard them. And then we can place one of these small walls. So you see that there's a bunch of different copies. This is the limited number that you can actually build. And so we can grab this and we can place it on any line connecting spaces around that character in any way we want. So we could place it like this, for example. We could place it like, whoops. This is one of the weird things with Tabletop Simulator and kind kind of a three-dimensional game, but I'm just going to grab this. So we can place it right here. Another way you can go about this is you can use the gizmo tools and just click on that item. You don't have to worry about weird collisions and the stuff moving around on you. We can place it right there. So the advantage of this is that now that is a barrier to zombies that they have to go around. Walls can be passed over by the survivors, just like it's a free movement, so they could just move right over that. But the zombies cannot, and they have to either go around it or break it down. So if they have the option to go around, they will. But if they don't have the option, they're gonna move to wherever is closer, and they're gonna try and bust down a wall. By the way, objects like this countertop here, are impassable by both zombies and the survivors. So the survivors cannot pass freely over top of these either. But if you're in combat, you still have a line of sight to your target, and you can shoot over these things. Similarly, if a zombie has a ranged attack, like the spewing spike or the shrieking sherry here, you'll see that they have a value of 3 and 2 for range. They can strike over top of one of these objects. Okay, so I think that describes crafting. There's a few different other items that you can build here, namely traps. So traps are very useful because zombies will, of course, move in a fairly predictable way. They'll always take the shortest path to a character to attack them. So you can place traps in places where you know zombies are gonna move through. And for doing that, you can you pay the cost. You have to have the requirements, pay the materials, and in this case, we have a spring to build a bear trap in addition to adhesive and metal. So let's just drag one of these guys out here, and you can see we placed it right here. When a zombie comes by, when they move across it, they will set it off. Characters or survivors do not set off traps, but there are some cards in the event deck that will just set off all your traps, and if you're close by and in striking range, you take damage. So in this case here, the designation goes R0 is that the range is only on the tile that the trap is on, and then D just is short for damage. So if this is triggered, it goes off. It only affects the one space with the one zombie on it, and it deals 4 damage to the zombie. We grab a pipe bomb, for instance. It has a range of 1, so it would affect any of these spaces. And in this case, it would deal 8 damage instead of 4 damage to this entire area. And then finally, we have a landmine, which is much more destructive. It basically would be dealing damage to within this radius here. So much more destructive. All right, so that kind of does it for traps. One thing I forgot to mention is with walls, they have a matching card. So if we search through this deck here, we can grab the matching card for that particular wall that's in play. So when that wall takes damage, we can throw damage counters on it until it is destroyed. Also note that each time you build or craft one of these things, you get experience points for doing that. And so just make sure that you're getting your character's experience points that they earn. One more thing about combat here with the zombies is that when you destroy one of them, you gain experience equal for their level. So it's shown on this part of the card. And then there's also a chance that they're going to drop a small item or a big item or no item at all. In fact, no, sorry, I take that back. They will always drop a small loot, but there's a chance that they can drop a big loot. Okay, so when this happens, let's say we destroy Bloody Mary. It's at level 1. And what we do is we take a d6 and we roll it. And wow, we rolled a 6. What do you know? So if we meet the condition, so big loot roll of at least 6, then we get a big loot token placed on that zombie's spot. And these are the premium items that everyone wants to get. So we could then later on go over here, move over top of it, pick that up, and then grab one of these cards from the big loot deck. So we could do that. Let's say that was Billy, and they picked up a nice little sniper rifle. So one thing to note here with these fancier weapons is that their the weapon skill is higher than the base weapons, which means that it is harder to score a hit if you've got a lower skill with that particular weapon. However, in this case, it has a big range, and it deals a lot of damage. So if you're good with this kind of weapon, it's really effective. But if you don't have a character that has a reasonable skill with it, it's going to be hard to score a hit, and it just may be completely useless to you. One more thing here is if you have a clip, you can discard a clip in order to reload your weapon, but the clip has to match the type of weapon that the clip can reload. So, for example, a rifle clip will reload any rifle weapon. So if you get down to 0 ammunition, you have the choice to discard one of these rifle clips for an action and reload your rifle weapon. Let's say that you had a weapon equipped and you wanted to switch weapons. You can also use an action to change out your armor and weapons for anything in your inventory. So in this case, we only have a couple options here. Let's say that we take our rifle and we want to replace it with the baseball bat. And so that requires an action. So now, when we do that, to keep track of how much ammunition is in this rifle, we will just take a d6 or 2, and I'm just going to copy this and place it on top of here, and then we have, let's say we had 6 ammunition in there, we would just use extra dice if we had to signify that, but a baseball bat doesn't have any ammunition, and so we're just going to do this. So it has infinite ammunition. All right, so I think we've got through everything with reference to combat. One thing I want to talk about here is when you level up. So if your character gets sufficient number of experience points, let's say that Shelly here gets up to here, she can level up. So leveling up happens on a character's turn. You don't have to level up if you don't want to, but there's really no disadvantage to doing so. And in order to do it, you have to have the number of experience points multiplied by your level. So in this case, we're at level 1. So we have to have 1 times 10. We have to have 10 experience points to go from level 1 to level 2. And then we would subtract that number from our total experience points. So we go down to 3. When you do this, you gain 2 points to your governing attributes. However, so you can have up to 1 point per attribute. So you have basically you choose 2 governing attributes to increase by 1, and then you get 2 skill points to distribute however you want to. If you don't use them, you lose them at this point. Just remember, if you increase any of your governing attributes, it will affect your hit points, crafting, movement, and initiative, so you want to adjust those as well. If your maximum hit points go up, then your health goes up by the number of change. So for example, we were at 8 to begin with. and we went up to 10, we increased by 2, we would increase our health by 2 as well. So now, to talk about zombies leveling up, so once they reach a critical threshold here, this is going to be 40 points. They level up from 1 to 2, and it affects zombies immediately. So they basically just immediately have all of the abilities in the second column here. And when they're defeated, give you more experience points and have a greater chance of giving you a big loot when they are destroyed. Now, if there's a dash on this part, it just means that there is no chance of getting a big loot at that level, and it's just automatically a small loot that they drop. All right, so I think that pretty much gets us through all the rules that you need to know to play the game. There are a few little bugs with the timer here. So once you reach a certain point, I think it's around like 3 or 4 o'clock on this dial, it for some reason wants to go back and forth between 4 and 3:30 every time you hit the add time button. And it's really strange, but if you actually advance it and then you press the minus time, it will instead advance the time, which is really strange. And then you can kind of continue advancing past that point. So it gets caught there for some reason. The other strange thing is when you're trying to move characters in and out of the buildings, because of Tabletop Simulator not really being designed for this exact application, you kind of have to have sort of a looking down view like I'm showing you right now when you're placing objects inside of the building. So if we are up on one level, I don't want to spoil what's inside, but basically you'd want to look from a slightly higher vantage points so that you can kind of reach inside. If you kind of don't do that, then what ends up happening is it wants to stick it on top of the building, which is not what you want. So it's a little bit fiddly, but with a little practice and using this angle, you can kind of get it right. If all else fails, just use the gizmo and the move, and then you can click on whatever it is that's giving you trouble, and then just manually move it around, and then you can place it there. I think that's just about it. Just with unlocking safes and lockers, basically if you are successful in unlocking them, you get the experience, and then underneath them there are some tiles which you can then retrieve immediately. You don't have to use an extra action. So it'll either be small loot or big loot, and then you'll take those and give them to your character. That is about it. So I hope that gets everyone started playing the game. If you have any questions, or if there's anything else that's unclear here, and you want to know, please absolutely leave a note in the comment section, and I will get back to you. The other thing is, this is meant to be a more helpful guide, more helpful version of the rule book, but the rule book is here for reference if you want to try that out as well. So I really hope you enjoy the game. Thanks for listening, and hope to hear from you. Thanks very much. Bye for now.